said you're going to take that same DNA, your DNA, and put this in the robes. Because if a girl is feeling down and she's stuck in the house or she want to feel good, she wants to feel good in amazing fabrics, and she want to see bright colors. She want that dopamine release when she sees her robe on back of her door. She wants to see that robe and say, "Ooh, let me take my shower. Let me put on my perfume. Let me put my robe on. Let me go ahead and make my drink. Let me go ahead and enjoy my meal and feel good about myself and pour into myself." You want to create products that get the girls going. And hey ladies, let me reintroduce myself to the world. My name is Cheryl Desire, owner and designer of SDesirebrand, a luxury loungewear lifestyle brand. We originated in 2013 with accessories and statement fashion, and then we pivoted in 2020 due to the pandemic into luxury loungewear. I was always inspired by fashion, beauty. I was obsessed with music videos growing up. I was obsessed with fashion magazines. I was obsessed with being a girl's girl. I'm the youngest of two sisters. I'm the baby. So I grew up in a household with all women, my two sisters and my mom. And it was all about embracing our femininity. And on my journey becoming a woman in 2007. In 2007, I was a teller at a bank, and I was going to community college. And during my time working at the bank, there was one of my customers. It was a boutique owner. She would come into the bank and deposit, her money, and she was a white woman, and she invited me over to a boutique. The boutique was literally like walking distance from the bank. I didn't even know. So I went into the boutique. I remember just looking around the boutique and just being so impressed, because back then, you would go to the mall and go shopping. You would go to City Blue in the city. You would go in the hood and get you some little cheapy clothes. But I wasn't really familiar with boutiques that much at the time. I think I was 22 at the time, 21. So she put me on to the boutique world, and I was just seeing all this fashion that I never seen before. They had like a boho chic vibe. You could tell they were well off, and the boutique probably was just something fun they were doing. And I was just impressed, and I was inspired by all of the fashions that I've never seen before. And I was always a fashion girl, so I have a good eye. So I was like, oh, okay. So as soon as I saw that, I was inspired to start my own boutique. So that is what started me with boutique and selling jewelry. I actually started selling jewelry because I met a gentleman. I was going to a hood bar one night and it was a guy outside of the bar on a Friday night selling books. And I was so impressed by the fact that he was selling books to bar goers on a Friday night. I just had to get to know him. I was like, hey, how long you been doing this? I really just was, and that was one thing, any aspiring businesswoman, don't be afraid to spark conversation. Don't be afraid to just talk and ask questions. So that was me. I was just like, what? And he was young. He was a young black guy. So I was just like, this is really unique. I was impressed. So I just started asking well, how do you get your books? Where do you get your books from? So he was like, oh, I go to New York. And I was like, oh, really? He was like, yeah, they got all types of stuff out there you can buy. I was like, really? Do they have jewelry and stuff and clothes and stuff? He was like, yeah, I go buy that stuff all the time. So ding. As soon as he said that, I said, okay. So when the next time you go to New York? Now, mind you, I was obsessed with New York growing up as a 80s baby, 90s kid. All of the good movies was in New York. The action movies, Sex and the City was big when I was in high school. I loved seeing New York. I just thought New York was just a hot spot. So I was like, I think only at the time I was only in New York one time, and that was for a school trip. So it wasn't really I got the real experience. So when he said he'd go there on his own, I said, well, how do you get there? He said the Chinese bus. So here in Philly, we have what we call the Chinese bus. It's $10 at the time in '07. I think it was $10 or $20 for a round trip back to New York and back, okay? So, boom. I said, well, can I go with you the next time you go? So we exchanged numbers. He invited me to New York with him. I met him downtown where the bus would leave, like in Chinatown, in Philly. And we got on the bus together, we sat there, had a good conversation. Then the bus got to New York, and I'm nervous. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in New York. And we get off the bus, and we are in Chinatown in New York, okay? So we get into the city of New York, and Chinatown was a whole different world. And the first thing, once we walked like a couple blocks, next thing you know, you see nothing but like stores and stores and stores, and like people outside selling stuff, and like it was just mayhem. And I was just like, okay, where do I start? And one thing about me pursuing business and just being ambitious is that even at the times where I was overwhelmed or intimidated, I never let it stop me. And at that moment, I was literally intimidated. I was just like, oh my God, you know, it's so much, but I'm gonna just take it in sections. So we would go into one store. So he actually had to go and re-up on some of his books. So he went to, you know, his plug, and I was trying to find my plugs, okay? So I'm going around figuring out like, how does this work? What do you get? And I think I purchased something. I might have only spent like $100 on like a couple pieces of hoops or something. It was something really simple because I was still trying to get my grounds together. And then once I learned that first time, I never had to bring them back again. He told me that one time. I wrote it down as we were traveling. Back then, I don't even think cell phones was a big thing. No, it was 07. I might have had like a little like flip phone or a little whatever. Like it wasn't like, you know, so I had a notepad and pen, okay? Saying, okay, you get off on the street, you walk down the street, like taking notes, okay? And that's how I figured out how to get to New York. So the next time I challenged myself by myself, I said, okay, I'm gonna go to New York and I'm going to just, you know, experiment, go out a little further out of Chinatown. And also I think I did some Google searches and found out other where some other I'll say wholesalers were. I even found out where all the fake bags were. Like I went back and forth till I learned New York by myself. I would go by myself, okay? And finally I started to find like the wholesaler stores, which you had to have a tax ID, and I got my tax ID, and I have, you know, got my business legalized under Sherelle's Beauty Boutique. And yeah, I was in there, and that's when I started to buy jewelry in bulk. I started I think I found fashion items online, and I had a little like boutique. So my father had a property at the time, and he let me use, like, it was a commercial residential property, so I would use the top floor. We closed it off just so I could have like a private little room to have appointments. So the first thing I started to do is market on MySpace. I was marketing before I knew what marketing was. So because back then in 07, if you know, from the MySpace days, you would see a bunch of club posters, people, it was big party time. 2007 was a big party, especially in Philly. Big party time, music time. So people would post a bunch of, you would promote yourself. If you went out to the club, you would, you know, take your pictures and you would post them on MySpace, and you would put music on your page and all of the things. And I would do that as well, but then I started to promote like my boutique, and like, hey, I have a boutique. I would say I'm taking appointments, so I would do personal shopping experiences, and I would literally get girls to come to my boutique, my little room boutique, and really make appointments, and was really trying to build. I also started to blog on MySpace. Back then, MySpace had like a little blog forum that you can use on your page, and I would write little blogs. And that's how I got started. I started with some cheap Chinese jewelry from New York, and I started to promote myself on MySpace and word of mouth. I started to offer jewelry parties. I had girlfriends who would book parties, and all they had to do was provide the food and the liquor, and the girls, they would get a discount and free items for booking, and I would make a killing at those jewelry parties. At the time, I also started to work full time. So I was full time working at a corporate job. I was a technical analyst, and then I would do jewelry parties on Sundays and Saturdays. And it was just like hustle time. It was really just my passion. It was like a drug. Not even want to say a drug. It was just like, it gave me energy. It gave me happiness. It gave me fulfillment. It gave me purpose. Just being around women and them buying my stuff and them feeling good to buy my stuff, and networking and having events. Like, it was just so purposeful for me, because it was getting me involved in circles that was feeding me, pouring into me, honestly, helping women and seeing how happy they were to buy my jewelry and seeing how happy they were to wear it. And it was just really it was just pouring into me as just a woman and a businesswoman. So I just kept pressing along. I wouldn't stop. It got to be a way to do this better. Then finally, around 2012, I said, okay. I started to learn about branding. And I mean, I kept elevating, like, you know, from doing the jewelry parties to having a blog. I had a blog, shestayfabulous.com. I would just use the blog to just express my creativity. Then I would do trunk shows, and the trunk shows were born, where I would go to like a boutique owner and set up a trunk show at her boutique, or a beauty salon or a nail salon. And so that was another way that I was just growing. I was doing the legwork. I wasn't concentrating on social media 100%. It was literally me in the trenches, okay? That's how I was building my brand. Then here comes Instagram, 2011, 2012. And Instagram was just like this new cool thing. Mind you, I was on Twitter. I never really was I was on Facebook, but Twitter kind of was where the celebrities were. So Twitter was the place to be. And Facebook was like, okay, this is where I'll post my pictures and stuff. But I really didn't feel a purpose on Facebook as much as I did on Twitter. I knew Twitter was like the place to be. And then being on Twitter is when I learned about Instagram, because people will post their Instagrams to Twitter. So then I got an Instagram, and it was like this cool kid thing, and only people with iPhones could use them. I had a BlackBerry at the time, and I made sure I got me an iPhone. And the first thing I did was get me an Instagram. And damn, I'm dating myself. Okay, so fast forward, then Instagram came, and then it was, okay, I need to learn how to brand myself. I really started to get into branding. And then that's when I said, okay, I don't want to keep buying wholesale jewelry and fashion. Like, I didn't want to do that. I even had some beauty items, lip glosses and eyeshadows and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? What's really going to take me apart from anybody else is if I start making my items. And I got the bright idea to start making button earrings. And it wasn't like your traditional button earrings. I would sit in my back room at like a fold-up table and just do whatever came to my mind. And I would go to like thrift stores and fabric stores and Michael's and all of these things, just grab random stuff either on my lunch break at work or order stuff online. And then I would figure out, like, okay, I figured out how to do a button earring, but how can I make these button earrings really pop? Because I was always like a fabulous girl. I always loved fashion. I always liked to stand out. So I started to incorporate the button earrings with fringe. And then I started to create button earrings with fringe. And then I started to name the earrings. Because I'm like, okay, they need a name. And that's how SDesirebrand was launched, on button earrings. So I said, okay, this is how I am branding myself, with button earrings. And that's how I said, okay, I moved my Instagram to SDesirebrand, SDesirebrand.com. Like, I really started to try to make sure everything was branded, got the website up, My first website was trash, but it was, you know, I was just trying to get my feet wet. And yeah, that's how we started. And then I started to elevate even more, do photo shoots. I would collaborate with other creators. Once people saw that I did jewelry, they would call me into their photo shoots and like have me do the accessory styling. So I would, on my Saturday mornings, I would be in people's studios and photographers and other fashion designers and working along with them and collaborating with them to style their photo shoots. And I would meet models, I would meet makeup artists. Yeah, like, so I would literally be building my network by working for free, pretty much. I was working for free. I was working for the content. You would collaborate with these folks and you would get the pictures, and then I would use the pictures to put on my Facebook or my Instagram and really just promote myself and just push myself and see where my creativity was taking me. And then I was just meeting amazing people along the way, amazing creators, and it really was when I stamped myself as far as being a Philly creative and just appreciating a space where I felt like I belonged. Because up until probably around that time, I didn't really feel like I belonged in Philly. I was a creative, and the going to clubs and the bars and things that some of my friends were doing, I wasn't really into that. I was a homebody creative. I was on my computer doing stuff or watching music videos or blogging. Yeah, I wasn't into being in the streets like that. Mind you, you know, I had my little fun here and there, but it wasn't really where I belong. It wasn't really like what I was dedicated to. Like, you wouldn't see me at somebody's club every weekend or nothing like that. When that was the time I should have been doing it, I wasn't interested in it. I was in my 20s and I just didn't fit in. And then it wasn't until about 2012, 2013, I felt like I found my tribe in Philly amongst the black creatives. And everybody was just different in their own way. Everybody was unique. Everybody was creative. And that was just a really, really turning point for me, is when I felt like I found my tribe in my city. And then that just helped me grow even more, because I knew that there were other people like me on a journey that didn't look like our parents. So once I found my tribe in Philly and I started to do my own photo shoots, and it's when I started to pivot into statement fashion. And then I was like, okay, I want to start making my own statement fashion, because, you know, we already was doing the statement jewelry. And I was like, I want to start my own kimonos. 2015 is when I said, okay, I can't keep hand making these earrings. This is not going to be conducive to me growing as I'm building my community, and the demand is going to grow. And at this point, I'm like, I can't really even meet no real demand. And I'm going through all of the trials and tribulations of business, figuring things out, how to ship things, what to ship it in, like all of the things that I had to learn on my own. And I really realized, okay, you have this branding going, but do you really have a brand that can sustain business? So I started to do research on production. I would, on my lunch break, on my days off, you know, Googling, or even when I was working, if I had a moment to do some Googles, I did my Googles and started to find out, like, how can I produce my own earrings? Like, how can I get someone to produce them? Because I don't want to do it by hand. I'm about working smart. I was working in the corporate world I started to work a real job from the age of 18. And I mean, I'm a person that likes to work smart, not hard. So I went to metals class. I enrolled in a class. I said, okay, maybe first let me learn the basics on how jewelry is made. So I enrolled into Moore College of Art and took a metals class for jewelry. I would go, class was like 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. or something like that. Right after work, I would go and drive to Center City and take class. And I would learn, we would sit there with brass metal, and we would burn the metal and mold the metal and do all of these things. And I was trying to figure out, like, okay, how is this stuff made? Because once I reach out to factories, I got to figure out how they do this and what's entailed, because I can't just be paying for stuff that I don't know, you know, what's the elements in it. So that was my whole mindset on going to school, because I really wouldn't know what metals were. I didn't know anything besides me selling them and knowing what looked good. So I took the class. I think it was like a, well, I don't know, it was a 60 or 90 day program or something like that. It was really cool. It was like one of those things that during your business and creative journey, you just challenge yourself. And I think that was just one of those things that I just wanted to challenge myself, get myself out of my comfort zone, and just learn. So I then shortly after that found a small manufacturer in Philly that did brass jewelry. And so with that I also found a program, like a jewelry designer program, and they would have conferences. So I went all the way out to New York again. Now I know how to get to New York. So that was nothing, but now I know how to get to New York a better way. Same bus theme, but more of a better bus, and the mega bus. So I would take the mega bus down to the fashion district of New York, and I went to this conference, and I learned about CAD design and how jewelry is first created in a digital format. So I learned about CAD design, and I met a few people that helped me understand the process and the cost and things like that. So then I found a manufacturer in Philly, because I needed things to be close to me, because I'm a hands-on person. I was the girl in class that would ask questions. I wasn't afraid to ask questions. I wouldn't be afraid to sit in front of class. I was that girl. So I wanted to find manufacturers that was local. So I found a Philly in the jewelry district in Philly downtown. I did find a manufacturer, and I think they made like a couple pieces for me. But once I realized how much the cost was, I'm like, this wouldn't be worth it, because I'm gonna have to charge so much money to make money and give my customers quality. So then I had to do more research. So then I found a manufacturer in New York. Go all the way to New York. I go to these big warehouse buildings. I found a woman-owned manufacturer. She makes a couple for me, but it's not sustainable because the distance, and it just wasn't going to be good business, just the model of it all. So then I go back to the drawing board and we still got the website up. We're still selling like wholesale jewelry or wholesale fashion, just trying to keep things fresh. I would do drops on Fridays at 12 p.m. I would do email marketing. Like, I was still doing my thing, okay? It wasn't until probably the end of 2019, well, around 2019, I was bartending and working my corporate job and selling, you know, had my website going, doing drops. I was doing all of these things, and I was working so hard and I was overwhelmed, but I was like functioning. Like, I was going through a depression, but it was like a functional depression. So I didn't really know, like, I was that depressed. But around that time, I said, okay, I'm gonna start with something small. Let me try to do some headbands instead of jewelry, because jewelry is way too expensive. So I found a manufacturer in Philly to do just like a small lot of my own design headbands. I found the fabric in Philly. I sketched the design. I talked to the manufacturer, which was also woman owned and black owned, and she did like a small order for me for my turbans. These were the glitty turbans, if any of my OGs of my girls remember. They were like a glitter fabricy headband. I was so proud of those headbands, even though that was hell dealing with that too. I released them and we sold out, and I loved those headbands. They were so unique. They were turban headbands, and around the time that I was selling those, I actually found another manufacturer in New York to see if they can do another type of turban for me for a better price. And they did. We did like a small, which I still didn't drop these turbans. And this was right after I lost both my bartending and corporate job. So this was early 2020. This is before COVID hit. I go to New York to go pick up my turbans that I already put the order in. I went there, you know, with the fabric and everything. They did them. I was going to go pick them up. And I had my kimono. So I had a vintage kimono that I was taking to them as a guide on how I wanted to do my kimonos, because the next step was me doing my kimonos. So once I go to pick up the turbans, they give me the price. I'm like, this is not a good price. Like, I really just overpaid for these turbans to get made. And they said, oh yeah, we can do your kimono. You don't, then they was like, oh, you don't have to keep coming back and forth to Philly, from Philly. You could just send us something. They would do the pattern and they would do the sewing and everything. But I remember paying for that order. Me and this woman was on the elevator, and I was so through and overwhelmed. I was like, I can't keep doing this. Mind you, now I done lost my jobs. I don't even know what I'm gonna do. I don't know what my next steps are. All I know is when I got on that elevator, I'm like, this ain't it. And the woman in the elevator was the same way. We both was just defeated. Like, no, this ain't it. So I remember walking, getting on the bus, taking the bus from New York to Philly. Probably like a week or two later, they shut the world down. COVID hit. And I was like, oh, thank God I got my order, but what I'm gonna do now? Because I have all I knew is that I would go live. So at the time, I would go live every Friday. Fabulous Fridays, we would do cocktails and combo. And that's the only thing that was keeping me afloat, was that I would go live, and this was getting me connecting with my community. And it was so purposeful for me, and we would just talk about self-care, we would talk about fashion, we would just vibe. And now the world shut down. All I could think about was, I'm gonna just go live and just, you know, just like the end of the world, I would just go live. And at the time, everybody was going live all the time now. And I was like, well, I'm gonna keep my lives up. So I go live, and all I could tell, I know I had a cocktail that night. And I remember just thinking to myself, well, I'm not going to sit here and talk about fashion, because nobody care about fashion no more. Nobody care about being cute. All we know is the world is shut down and everybody is scared. People, like, at that time, traffic was amazing. Like, nobody they were scared to go to the store. Everything was just a mess. It was chaos. So I was like, nobody cares about fashion. And in my head, I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna make content about fashion, and I'm gonna post it, and I'm gonna show girls how to do flat lays and plan their outfits, and how to get out the house and start wearing it. All of that stuff went out the door, because I'm like, nobody cares about that right now. I know I don't care about it. So I just started to talk about mental health and saying, hey girls, I know it feels like the world is ending, but you still need to get up, wash your butt, put on something pretty, put on some pretty loungewear, throw on your perfume, take your hair out that bonnet, out that scarf, and look good and feel good. Put on some shapewear so you ain't overeating, and feel good about yourself. Put on some pretty lotions, oils. Like, even you're working from home, but that don't mean you need to be looking bummy all day. And I was so passionate about that. Like, don't let yourself go. I think that was the theme of the night. It was, don't let yourself go. And I started to tell the girls what to do during our shutdown, during quarantine. That's what we was calling it at the time. During quarantine, so they can stay fabulous. And I stuck with that purpose, and I stuck with that passion. And as I'm talking about it, the light went off in my head. I said, you were just about to start doing kimonos. Won't you do robes? And then I was like, well, let me look for some robes. So I started shopping around, because I'm like, you don't even got no cute loungewear. You telling them to wear some loungewear. So I started searching, and I'm looking, I'm Googling. I'm like, everything look cheapy. Everything don't look like it'll just be like corny. And I think I went on Shein or something, found a cute little like something just to try to make content in. And I just was like, no, you can make your own rolls. you can do this. Nobody's doing this. Like, you can create your own robe line, your own loungewear. Like this is a whole lifestyle. And when I tell you, God spoke to me, God put that wire, what is it? Whatever. God put fire up my butt, okay? And I started to search online. Now, I already knew how to do a lot. It's like when you know so much, you know nothing. I already knew, like, okay, you don't have to go back and forth to New York. You got resources. You know how to contact. You know how to do these things. But it was always such a known and scary thing to do. Like I said, I am the person that sits in front of the class and asks 20 questions. Doing something as big as investing in making my own rolls was like, I need to go to the factory. But I just said, girl, you're going to have to do something. So I started to communicate with factories overseas. Because mind you, my New York factory, they didn't even have like a digital way of communicating with them. Like, it was so old fashioned how they were doing business. So I just was like, okay, use your resources that you know and find a factory on your own and just wish for the best. And I did. And fast forward to like around Juneteenth is when we first launched our first robe, which was the Fab Leisure robe. I said, okay, let's just do this standard robe, see how it does, and if we get a good response, green light. So I did it, it sold out, and I said, all right, let's go. I already knew the button earrings, for my girls, the button and the fringe and all of that, it was always intentional to be different, to have animal print, to be flashy, to be statement pieces, So I said, you're gonna take that same DNA, your DNA, and put this in the robes. Because if a girl is feeling down and she's stuck in the house or she wanna feel good, she wants to feel good in amazing fabrics and she wanna see bright colors. She wants that dopamine release when she sees her robe on back of her door. She wants to see that robe and say, ooh, let me take my shower, let me put on my perfume, let me put my robe on, let me go ahead and make my drink, let me go ahead and enjoy my meal and feel good about myself and pour into myself. You want to create products that get the girls going, excites them, and makes them want to feel sexy and feel feminine and pour into themselves. And next thing you know, she say, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead, get in the bath, lotion up, put my perfume on, put my hair down, put on my pretty robe, make me a drink. Let me recalibrate myself. Let me get myself together so that I can push toward another day. And that was the spark that I needed to move my business to the next level and elevate myself as a woman, as a person that was driven to help other women. From the moment I started my boutique, I wanted to help women, and I used fashion as a vessel to get me in front of women and to build a community and to change the world and change the way that we look at life and just make it a little bit more enjoyable by looking and feeling good and being gracious and showing gratitude and being kind and pouring into ourselves and investing in ourselves and elevating ourselves and transforming. Like, all of these things was what my purpose has been all along. So I want to invite you to our elevation era. So now, with all of that said, we are taking things to the next level, and I want to invite you onto this journey. So be sure you follow, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend. Make sure you shop at SDesirebrand.com and stay tuned because we have amazing, amazing things coming. Okay, ladies? Stay fabulous, and I'll talk to you soon. Yes.